Well, hello. Hello. Thank you for being here again. Hope you are receiving me nicely and clear. We are covering some of the concepts that I've been posting to you throughout the week, and this is all about teaching meetings for creating movement. If you want to comment at any point during the session, just feel free to do so in the chat box. I'll be I'll be pending for your comments or for your questions, and you are most welcome to join the conversation at any time. So without further ado, I'm gonna share my screen because I actually prepared some slides. It's not very complicated, but I want to help you use it as a reference of what I'm sharing with you today. So let me share my screen or share my window, and let's go. So thanks again for being here. So what I'm gonna share with you today is all about creating movement as managers. It doesn't matter if you are a junior manager, middle manager, or senior manager. It all will help you move faster forward with your team and with your company. So that's why we are calling this session "Are you being managed by inertia?" Because sometimes we just let the everyday hyperactivity of our business and of the market just run over us, and we're actually being managed by inertia instead of managing everyday value, right? So for those of you who don't know me, hi, I'm Gabo, and my name is Gabriel Campillo. And for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to share with you what's the inertia trap and what are meetings. What if meetings aren't your problem? And what if it's something deeper inside that's hiding behind the meetings that we are having in every day? Then I'll share with you a little bit more about what do actually teams need, and then I'll wrap it up with the three main takeaways for you to enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you are already in a weekend, if not, I hope you have a very good weekend. Okay, a little bit about me. I started working with innovation in 2001, founding one of the first creative consultancies in Mexico with other two partners. And in 2007, I shifted from the creative consultancy into the innovation process within every organization. And in 2012, I decided uh, that I preferred working with people instead of processes, because what I found is that building too big and robust processes for innovation actually hinders innovation, because it actually turns innovation into its own silo, and it's moving freely, yes, but isolated from the rest of the company, and impeding the rest of the company on becoming more innovative. So in 2012, I started focusing more on people, and in 2009, I started merging together the ideas of innovation and entrepreneurship, and I found out that it is basically the same thing. We are all entrepreneurs. That's one of the main mind shifts that occurred to me at that point. That we are all starting something new every day. So in the bottom and in the core, we are all entrepreneurs. It doesn't matter whether it is a startup, it is a very big corporation, or is a medium or large company. And 2 years ago, I founded the White Space Academy, which is focusing on merging together everything that has to do with creating revenue first innovation in three main key pillars: brand and product portfolio, business operations and efficiency, and people and culture. Okay, so what I'm about to share with you today is a little bit more about people and culture. Okay, so the inertia trap. What's behind um, the inertia trap, right? Um, so this is something that I shared with a couple of leaders about a year and a half ago, and most managers aren't stuck because lack of effort, right? they're stuck in systems behind designed for inertia, because some of those they are working at corporations that already have proven their business. But even though they're starting something new as a startup, as a startup founder, they have been trained to they have been trained to manage systems in the same way very big corporations has done it throughout the years, right? So they are trying to manage their small to medium business or their startup in the same way as a large corporation, and nothing could be further from the reality, because when you're trying to do things resembling as managing a corporation, you are overcomplicating things. Even in very big corporations, we're always drawn to overcomplicating things. Okay, so no one ever has said this before. Okay, I wish I had more meetings. Okay, and this quote I take it from Adam Dignan. He wrote a book that is called um, the Brave New Work, and actually nobody said this ever before. Actually, it's quite the contrary, right? Because what we found in everyday operations is that instead of simplifying the way we manage work, we actually create a meeting to manage and design work. And because we are not aligned on what's happening throughout the week, we need to create and to schedule another meeting to answer questions about the previous meeting, and then so on and so forth. And we found ourselves actually having more meetings than actually doing the work and executing upon whatever accord was the outcome of the previous meeting. So this is all to try to rethink work, right, and how we manage to deliver value for our organization, for our teams, to our own lives, etc., right? So the real problem aren't meetings. The real problem lies in the back of what's happening behind the meetings, right? The meetings are actually a symptom of that inertia that I was mentioning previously. Let's be clear: meetings aren't evil. We actually need meetings, and we all actually need one point in time in which we all come together to bring clarity and alignment on what we're trying to achieve as a team, right? But when you see more meetings piling up, it often signals something that is much deeper. It is about lack of trust. It is about lack of clarity, and it's also a symptom of lack of autonomy. And because we are overcorrecting for confusion by over communicating, and that's why we actually don't get the job done every day. Okay, so what is it that teams need instead of having meetings? Okay, so what they need is actually psychological safety. They need a clear sense of purpose, and I don't mean by this a sense of purpose, an organizational purpose. Okay, let's save the planet. It's not just that. It's understanding and having a clear purpose of why does that meeting actually exist? Why do we exist as a team? Why do we exist as a business unit? Why do we come together during 30 minutes or maybe 1 hour or 2 hours for a planning session? We need to have a very clear sense of purpose, and then we need to set clear the decision rights everybody has within that meeting. Because once we start um, wrapping the meetings up and having some accords, we need the autonomy to take decisions once we are not in front of the boss or in front of our peers, because we actually need to take decisions. If the purpose is not clear, if we're not aligned, if we don't have a clarity on what we are set to do for the coming week or month or quarter, then we will always fall back into another meeting. So we lack autonomy, right? So this is what we need: psychological safety, clear purpose, decision rights, and we need full autonomy. Okay, but sometimes we don't get this autonomy because our bosses don't trust in us getting the work done or executing upon our objectives and our everyday workloads, right? So I want to share with you a model that I got to know about 5 years ago. This was created by Drexler and Seabed, and it moves you very easily from forming a team or forming a new project, for example, and into performing to the top of our levels. And the first thing that we need to do is orient the team and set clear the purpose of whatever is happening. Right? Then building trust among the team members. We need to know who we are working with, because in the end, people need people. So if we have the purpose clear enough, then we start knowing ourselves better, and then we would know what the other person in front of us needs from us, but what do we also need from them. And that's the basis for creating a goal definition. So when we understand what is our purpose and who we are working with, then we can set the goal of what we want to achieve together, and then we would get the commitment of doing this with x amount of resources, or um, y amount of time, etc., etc. And now we get to understand who gets to do what, in how much time, and with what resources, and then we can move freely and clearly and powerfully into the implementation and execution of the plan. But number six here, for example, the implementation wouldn't happen if number five is not clear, and if this wouldn't happen if number four, the commitment, it's not clear, and this wouldn't happen if the goal commitment or the goal definition is not clear. And if we find something that in the planning stage, something is like it's not moving freely, it's not moving with a certain flow, it most certainly it is because the commitment is not clear. And if something happened, is somebody is not committing to the task or to the goal, is basically because the goal definition isn't clear enough. And if the goal definition isn't clear enough, is that we don't trust them, that we don't have we haven't had that trust built among us. And if trust is not there, is because our purpose is not clear. So that's why I like this model very, very much. It starts from purpose, and it moves with the team through all of the what they need to design in order to perform, right? And this needs to happen because management training misses the actual point. Well, the traditional management training that we have received throughout the years is uh, about managing tasks, managing risks, managing communication, and transferring uh, whatever the vision of leadership is throughout the company. So in the end, we are managers trying to pull all these levers together at the same time, and what we are creating as a result is more confusion. So we rely more in meetings with ourselves, with our teams, and more meetings with our own managers, with our own bosses, right? So management training here is missing the point about why do we have meetings and how are we set to move forward with execution in order to start the movement going, right? Autonomy isn't built, it's not granted. So if you want more autonomy, you need to build trust through clarity, not control. And we have found ourselves building more meetings because we don't have the autonomy, we don't have the clarity, and we feel that we need these meetings as a way of controlling whatever is happening in a project or in a strategic planning, et cetera, et cetera. So we over control the execution process with meetings, and we're actually impeding teams and managers move along and move through the actual work that they need to do in order to achieve their objectives, right? And what something sometimes happens is that we are always working in the middle of two business areas. For example, when we are confusing control for autonomy and speed for stability, is that we overlook what's happening between teams. And this is what Aaron Dignan calls the tensions. So, most certainly, you have heard about the tensions that exist between marketing and sales, not to mention the tensions that exist between, for example, marketing and finance, right? And we overlook these tensions, and we're always meeting to trying to resolve these tensions, only to get an hour of wishful thinking and not resolving the tensions and not executing upon these tensions. So we need to understand as managers and as leaders, where are these tensions being generated, between which two teams, which two business units, which two areas, in order to resolve them, unlock them, and then help the teams to move forward freely and to help value move freely or more fluently through the organization, right? So we need to replace meetings with movement. And I've shared this before in our last session, where you need to start setting experiments as a way of freeing these tensions. And we use these test cards created by Strategizer in order to identify the tension, map the tension, and then set a hypothesis and a safe to try experiments. This is where safety needs to be built with teams, because if they don't feel safe enough in order to experiment with a new practice, for example, or with a new activity, the experiment wouldn't even go through, right? So we need to set apart a time and a time frame and specific resources to create these experiments, and let people fail at it in order to understand what we are learning from these experiments, and then log it into the knowledge base of the team or the business unit or the whole corporation, right? So we need to let managers and teams self-reflect on the tensions that they're having, but also act and create these experiments through a definite amount of time. So here I'm sharing, for example, what are some common tensions that get to be lived throughout the company. So for example, the first tension is the moment control and autonomy collide. What it looks like is that managers bottleneck decisions and teams wait for approvals. So the counteraction for this is map decisions rights and who should decide what at any point in time. And the experiment could go for 2 weeks like this: create a decision rights map and delegate one key decision to the team. And for 2 weeks, you wouldn't have a say on this specific topic, and then see what happens, right? And I have listed here a couple more. So for example, the tension of speed confronting with stability, maybe rules versus principles, or maybe hierarchy versus network, right? And I'm explaining to you here what this tension looks like and what could be a possible counteraction, right? And then try an experiment like this. And it doesn't have to be these two forward. Actually, Adam Dignan, in his work, Brave New Work, enlists 64 different tensions and 64 different counteractions that you could turn into an experiment, and to see what happens for the next 2 weeks, for the next month, et cetera, and see what do you find and what's the key learning about the new ways your team is finding to collaborate with each other, right? And this is super, super helpful. And what are the three main key takeaways for of what I've been sharing with you? So meetings are signals, not solutions. Autonomy needs to be designed, not granted. And innovation starts with trust, not tools, in order to become a discipline for the team, for the business unit, or for the whole company. Okay. If you want to find about more about becoming a facilitation based leader, subscribe to the newsletter in LinkedIn. I'll keep you posted, because we are actually launching a masterclass in the next 2 weeks, and you're going to be delighted with this. It is super easy, it's super simple, it's full of new experiments, and it actually will help you transform the way you lead meetings in order to keep the work and execution and the value moving forward into the organization. So for this, thank you very much for your attention. I don't know if you have um, any questions. Drop them in the chat box, and yeah, let's keep in touch. Thank you very much for being here with us today.